Welcome to the Equity.Guru Investor Roundtable. Today, talking about semiconductors. Those are the really short guys that collect your tickets on the train.
Yep. Boom.
Here twice, two shows nightly. Semiconductors is what we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to give you some companies that you can think about here. PTEK, which is PTK, Peter Tango Kitchen.
Yeah.
Kilo.
Official Army terms. PTK on the venture, Spectra7 with the actual number 7, SEV on the venture. Also on the venture is QNC, which is quantum numbers, and then Micromem, kind of like Micromom, but it's Micromem Tech, and it's MRM on the Canadian exchange. TK did a delightful write-up for all of us that we can see next door on the Equity.Guru website today. What's happening, TK, in the semiconductors?
So before I go into the companies, I wanted to ask the roundtable to a quick quiz here. How large compared to the US do you think the Canadian semiconductor industry is?
Is this multiple choice or?
I'm going to take a wild
No
stab at it
multiple
because I have no fucking clue, but I'm going to say infinitesimal.
That's a good guess.
Compared to the US?
Compared to the US.
I'm going to go the opposite and just for fun be wrong and say to 15%.
Okay.
I was going to say quarter.
A quarter. They, last year, Canadian market, $3 billion in sales.
Okay.
The US, $550 billion in sales.
Okay.
Whoa!
It's more like a portion of 1%.
So
Yeah,
Galen
I must feel like an idiot saying 25%.
So I win the showcase.
Yeah.
I was down at
No, it
15%.
reminds me
Yeah,
of,
see, there we go.
there's this investor who said, if you're making a guess in a silent auction, go with the wildest number, because if you get it right, people think you're amazing, but you were just
Well, you
guessing.
see, price is right. You always bid $1, right? That's the way you do it.
True. That's right.
But yeah, the Canadian market is small traditionally to the US. I'll just throw out some of the big names there for the SEO. NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, Taiwan Semiconductors, and Micron are the biggest. Taiwan Semiconductors being one of the biggest companies in the world. I think 800 billion in market cap. Only so close to the $1 trillion club. Sadly, Tesla has beat them now. But anyways, the industry is kind of the same, so I won't go through each individual company and talk about specifics, but I'll cover them in tandem. So it's a cash-heavy business that in Canada has not generated sales yet, except for one, which is Spectra7 has what is it, 1.9, close to $2 million in sales in the last 12 months. So they're the only ones who did sales, but a lot of them have cash or are building up a cash position. So the largest cash pile was from Poet. They have $21 million in cash with a market cap of $339 million. So, and this is at no sales. They have sales, but it's $200,000 in sales in the last 12 months. So the key thing with the semiconductor industry is that there are different components, and majority of the sales come from corporate interplay. So I'll use the big guys, for example. Something that I don't think a lot of people appreciate is Intel, AMD, NVIDIA all use Taiwan Semiconductors.
Yep.
They outsource. It's very costly to insource, to in-house license most of the products.
Well, in source too,
And-
why not?
Yeah.
Same thing.
So a lot of the companies go outside, and Taiwan Semiconductors has kind of been the biggest element. So a lot of these companies actually have deals with some of the global partners, and they have global clients as well, because it's not only B2C, it's B2B as well. So it's a perfect industry if you're trying to get exposure to the hardware side of the technology revolution. The software side is personal opinion. There's more speculation in the software side than there is the hardware side. But there's something tangible you're seeing. You can actually see the products coming out. But there is the fair share of speculation when new products are coming out. And companies like Intel are lagging behind because of their 7 nanometer processor chip. I think I might be wrong.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's 7.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And That's where they are right now. Cash heavy, no sales yet, outsourcing most of the manufacturing.
The 7 nanometer chip with a little bit of the onion dip.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Yeah.
of guac, a little bit of guac.
With a little
Unbelievable. So that's TK up there in the penthouse apartment. Now we go to my fellow basement dweller,
Hey,
Galen.
I like the semiconductor industry because it is utilitarian in form. And as TK says, it's a very much corporate interplay environment.
Utilitarian.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were allowed to use 6-syllable words on this show.
Oh, sorry. I'll cut that back.
Holy
It's very
smokes.
functional. That's less, isn't it?
Don't talk like cavemen.
See, there we go. It worked good. I
like stock.
I like stock. Yeah. Semiconductors are, again, sort of an infrastructure instrument if you're considering the digital sector. So unsexy in many ways, unknown in a lot of other ways, but integral in many ways. And as TK said, the big guys like Intel and others all farm out their chip making and fabrication, because building a fab lab and bringing a chip from design to commercial production is insanely expensive. So it's better that one person does it and everybody just copies the chipset coding and just works from there. So that's what the industry is right now. For me, what we're talking about in terms of companies, yes, Canada is a small and desolate place when it comes to semiconductors. There are some interesting companies, and two of the ones that he was talking about, I really liked and had started writing about a long time ago. I haven't written about them in a while, but it was always very turned on by what they had to offer because I thought it was very apropos to the industry. Spectra7, I want to start with. The idea of interconnectedness when you go between devices. For instance, the big thing at that point, the big push, because at that point, if you put like an artificial, what the hell am I talking about? The environment, the virtual reality or augmented reality would require you to wear a helmet-sized headset with cable the size of your fist coming out of the back of your head going to some sort of device that would supply all the information. So beyond the fact that it was neck-breaking and really uncomfortable, it just wasn't practical, and the industry itself required a step up in technology to move forward. And Spectra7 at that point in time was talking about developing technology that was a thin cable and also an interconnected chip that would require absolutely no space in whatever headset you're wearing. And they're finally getting to that point because of years of R&D, and this is what you need. So what they have on top of the fact of this augmented reality interconnectedness, they also have developed something that is also corporate agnostic in the terms of fiber thin copper, which is operating at the same speed, but at a infinitesimally small or lesser cost to actually driving fiber through your network, which is really expensive. And again, requires converters on either side to take the signal back from optical to digital. And there's just all sorts of investment made where just using a copper cable with much less density is a far cheaper option for them to use. So Spectra is playing on that market, and I think it's a really interesting value proposition. Poet Technologies, along that same vein, deals again with interconnectedness. It's developing chips that sit on the same surface. You've got opto technology going straight to digital on the same chip, which was never possible before, especially at the size that they were talking about. They're in the nanometer stages. It took them a long time to get these chips to a production stage. But I mean, honestly, if you're able to do this kind of conversion without having to do all the converters and the alignment and hardware special installs to make this process happen, this is a real game changer.
True.
So admittedly, both of these companies are in the infancy of providing those services, but they are far closer than they ever been before. And the blue sky potential for having a hair thin cable connecting your augmented reality to your phone now. It doesn't have to be to a big fucking unit behind you, is leading more to the portability and thus the actual creation of this particular environment on a consumer level, which I think is awesome. And because of it being corporate, interconnected, they're not selling their own unit. They can sell to anybody doing anything in this realm, and that's
true.
That's a huge profit potential.
Are you guys saying Spectra7 is a potential metaverse play?
Yes, very much so. But on the side that's not having to align with anyone to do it, they can sell to everybody in the sector because they're providing a service for everyone's devices, not just Meta's and not just anybody else that's trying to create. And Meta, I kind of have to giggle when I talk about it because it's just Facebook trying to realign themselves. I don't know. I don't think unless they storm the sector and buy everybody that's doing anything, will actually be a viable player in the next 10 years. They're most likely going to be in next Nortel. See you later, Facebook. Now, the other guys that you were talking about in terms of products, quantum motion, I think is quite interesting because true random numbers don't necessarily exist. And for us to protect our information in a world that's about to see quantum computing come into play, this is a necessary addition. Yes, absolutely. So this is something that I would like to keep my eye on. Still very much in the infancy stage, really much in the research and development stage, but still a very interesting proposition. And then Micromem, hey man, we're Internet of Things. We're there, right? And it's only going to get bigger. And being able to have top quality sensors that can feed back information on a moment's notice and be transparent in the data delivery, that's awesome as well. So these companies, I wouldn't mind keeping an eye on. More so with Spectra and Poet, just because they're kind of my favorites, and I'll have to admit that I'm biased. But yeah, there you go.
I just want to, before Vishal goes, point out something that I think Galen perfectly put out there is, even though they are under the same umbrella, each one does something so different. Even the big guys, although they're more conglomerate with their activities, they each have a specific focus, and you can't look at the basket and assume you're getting the same value. And a lot of people made the mistake with the US firms, and they got burnt in 2000. And that's probably what the aversion that's happened with some of the Canadian, with the Canadian stocks as well. People are just putting them under the same blanket, saying if Intel is suffering, these guys might suffer too, which is obviously not true. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So, and as to not duplicate effort, since we're going to be rolling through these symbols here anyway, I don't have to go through them right now because Vishal's about to hit them on the chart.
I'll hit them up on the charts. We'll start off quickly here on the ETFs, SMH and SOXX. If you're bullish semiconductors, and look at this, folks, the markets are definitely bullish. The semiconductors keep making new record highs. Just a few days ago, yesterday we made new record highs. But semiconductors are everywhere, right? If you're big into tech, have a bit of a story here. You guys have heard about the semiconductor chip shortage, right? It's still technically ongoing because of supply chain issues, but this was maybe back in summer. I was buying a new vehicle. A lot of the cars were off the lot, and I was like, oh, okay, supply chains, it's going to take some time. But new cars use semiconductors. And if they don't have enough semiconductors, you can't build a lot of these new cars as well. And that was, maybe it's common knowledge, but it was something new to me. But you use semiconductors for a lot of stuff.
It's affecting computers right now, right?
Well, it's anything that has any sort of digital aspect to it, because basically semiconductors are the skeletal structure of the digital platform.
Right. The show, people are watching us right now because of
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And TK mentioned some of the biggest movers right now in the US side, like AMD, which also printed new record highs. Micron, MU. So a lot of these will look very similar to the ETFs that I just showed you. Of course, Qualcomm as well. And this is, of course, the Apple play, because they basically produce everything Apple makes, I believe, in China.
Pretty well.
Pretty much, right? And, TK mentioned it, but Taiwan, they are the big player. I follow TSM just because geopolitically, I think that they're huge. Obviously, the whole world pretty much relies on Taiwan for these semiconductors. And something I'm more interested in is basically how some of these chains might shift because there is,
A
a
tremendous
country.
interest by China.
Exactly, right? So yeah, exactly. So where there's a country, China, that has an issue with Taiwan, and they've been sending in jets recently just to scare the Taiwanese. And you have the Taiwanese foreign minister saying, "Hey, China's going to invade us sometime soon." Things are looking, a bit shaky in that part of the world, and I think South Korea, I believe, is going to be trying to pick up the pace and develop develop semiconductors there. But there's also the North Korea element, I guess, there as well, and then maybe the Japanese, right? They might be looking to get some, build their own semiconductors because they're worried that if China moves their navy in and blocks shipping lanes in Taiwan, Japan, which is obviously very heavy into technology and requires semiconductors, they're going to have to look somewhere else, and there's really nowhere else to look nearby. So they might have to develop semiconductors within Japanese or on Japanese soil. So I think semiconductors. There's a big geopolitical aspect when you look at the chart of Taiwan Semiconductors. I mean, it's just been basing since March of this year. Basing, I mean, ranging from $124 to the upside to 108 to the bottom. They pay a dividend of 39 cents per quarter, and I think we might be seeing a breakout sometime soon. There was a little tease of a breakout yesterday, November 22nd, but unfortunately we didn't get that close back above. But I think, TK, you'll be happy to know that once we do get that breakout, we'll probably see the $1 trillion market cap on Taiwan Semiconductors one day, because they are the big boys. So I think you should definitely keep an eye out on this chart. And when that breaks out, I think a lot of the other semiconductors will also move in tandem, although they already are, right, with the breakouts here in AMD and some of that. But let's look at, some of the companies we talked about, the Canadian guys, a bit different, a bit weaker price action here. POET Technologies, we are pulling back, and there is a support zone here at around 90 cents. Hopefully we'll see some buyers there, but we did give up that $1 zone, right, which we held since summer of this year, since July. And you can see here, buyers kept pushing in and kept buying at that $1 zone, but we just couldn't get that momentum. And unfortunately, with a close below $1, it's maybe not the best. I do see they have earnings actually out today, the 23rd, possibly, or maybe it's this week sometime. So that might be interesting to watch. We'll take a look at Spectra in just a bit, because I think that's probably my favorite of the bunch here. Quantum as well, same sort of signal here, where we did break down below 22 cents. Maybe we're going to find some support here at around 17 cents. And then MRM, pretty ugly day today. Big fat red candle, down 4.5%. There was a bit of a breakout here from 6 cents. So this is, a very, very cheap play. And we have actually crossed over my moving averages. So there is a chance that we could build some momentum. What I would want to see, though, is how the stock will hold up tomorrow when we test 10 cents. And maybe by the time this video comes out, where we have tested 10 cents and we're climbing up higher. But I think my eyes are going to be here on Spectra. TK, you mentioned they put out earnings, right? Or they did do some sales.
They did sales, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm assuming this came out on August, perhaps?
I'm not sure.
August,
I used the last 12 months figure, so I just added up.
Okay.
Close to 2
I'm assuming that time they did a split here, because you can clearly see from the chart, like after they did that stock split and the earnings here in August, people are interested in the stock. I mean, the volume is much more better. I mean, you can see the candles here clearly, because there's more people trading the stock compared to this, right? Where it's very sporadic and there's not very much volume. The stock maybe moves only 1 or 2 cents. So I'm assuming that the good numbers came out just recently, August of this year, and we just broke above $2. So there's some momentum here, and especially during a time when a lot of stocks are getting beat up. I think this is a really, really good play, and especially given what you guys just said and what Galen mentioned about Spectra. First thing that to come into my mind was the whole metaverse play with, augmented mixed reality and all this kind of stuff up here. So, I I like the stock. That's all I can say about these guys. I think Spectra is probably my favorite here of the bunch. But yeah, semiconductors definitely for the future. I think we're probably going to hear more about it in the future. Especially if we see issues with China and Taiwan. But I think people should realize that technology, it relies a lot on semiconductors, and we rely a lot on Taiwan. And if issues with Taiwan rise, then we could be hearing a bit more about shortages from Taiwan, and the world will have to find a way to make up for that supply.
Can you throw up PTK one more time?
PTK, there we go. Poet. Just didn't like that break below $1. That's the only one
I want to go back to that one because I was trying to remember which one was. Yeah, had the little tail there. Galen, what are we doing on the Johnny on the spot with my $7,500?
Well, I really like Spectra7. It's always been my favorite of the Canadian semiconductor companies. I like the technology. I like where they've taken it, and I like the application. And it's apropos, like its applicability in the way the world's going to actually start happening, which is augmented reality. It's coming, kids, and it's going to be a huge force. So I'm going to throw. You know what? I think it's a nice trend. I'm going to throw 3,500 at it and see how it pairs out in the next year. That's me.
Nice. TK?
So I'm choosing my words here to piss off Galen specifically.
Oh, thank you.
And, they're the founder of Intel posed the what is it called, the Moore's law.
Moore's law, yes.
Law. Basically, chips are doubling every so and so, but people have debunked it or trying to debunk it because they're saying he didn't factor in the cost of manufacturing EDC, which is not the case of any theory. It's just you're throwing it out because of what you're seeing. But we are seeing that demand is there. Recently, Alibaba, Apple have kind of structured their contracts and internal research to do their own semiconductors in the US, but they're outsourcing to some of the smaller cost firms. So there is a big opportunity there for companies like Poet to go in and get the lower term contracts compared to some of the bigger manufacturers that have to mark up just to make a profit. So I would look at buying the basket, because I'm not too sure who Apple is going to go to there, but 7,000 on the basket, 7,500 on the basket, and make that bet that people are going to be using more chips today than they are tomorrow.
So you're saying you're taking the ETF route, or?
I'm taking the ETF route, yeah.
Okay.
Vishal?
I'm assuming Alibaba doesn't buy from Taiwan, right?
No, they actually created internally.
Yeah, okay.
They created internally. Yeah. They released one recently. Obviously, the market focused more on earnings, but yeah, they create their chips internally, just like Apple. Well, Apple now creates them internally as well.
Okay, they do. Okay.
Well, just the M1. They don't create every chip internally.
Yeah, just for the phones.
Yeah,
I might be wrong. No, for the laptop. Sorry.
Yeah.
Rob, I like Spectra here. Given what I've heard here, looking at their stuff and the chart breakout here, I think that's especially in this type of market environment when you have a breakout like this. It looks like they have earnings next week, so maybe I'll hear back from TK. We'll find out what happened on the earnings side next week. Yep. So if they just recently put out sales, maybe sales are going to be better, and maybe that's why we got the breakout here, because that was a pretty strong candle yesterday, up 13% on November 22nd, up 13%, folks, and that gave us that breakout. So perhaps there are people who might be in the know, or they're just predicting that the earnings are going to be quite good because it's coming out next week, and they're getting into positions right now. So I like what I'm seeing here on Spectra, and I think I don't have a semiconductor position. I sort of like my metals and my commodities a bit more, but I think I would be putting about somewhere between 3,500 to 4K in Spectra, and hold for the long term.
All right, there you go. Spectra7 with the actual number 7 is a popular one. SEV on the venture exchange. We also have PTEK, some love there. PTK on the venture, also on the venture QNC, quantum numbers, and Micromem Tech, MRM on the Canadian exchange. Semiconductors. a piece, a part of your everyday existence in many different ways.
That's
So
true.
that might be worth looking at it right there. We can't guarantee any results from what we've told you. We also can't guarantee future results from past performance on the market. So do your own research, do your own homework, please. And best of luck moving forward with everything. Galen down here in the basement, we're going to go have a bourbon. TK upstairs, he'll probably have champagne with his rich friends, as will Vishal up there in the other penthouse apartment. See you guys later. Thanks for tuning in to the Equity.Guru Investor Roundtable.
One could say that was electrifying.